Mennonite Conference of Eastern Canada, or Mennonite Churches of Eastern Canada. Sorry. Previous to that, there was three individual conferences or groups of churches who were independent, and the Conference of the United Mennonite Churches of Ontario was one of them, and they had a committee that was called the Missions Committee, of part of that conference, part of that group of churches, which was almost all United Mennonite. If you've seen the word United Mennonite, that was part of this group of churches. Anyways, they had a missions committee that was interested in working in Toronto, and so this committee was actually pushed by Betty and Adolfo Puricelli to do something in Toronto for newcomers who were coming to Toronto, and so that from that grew. The committee decided, okay, they would start a small office in Toronto, and that was the beginning, and that's how I heard about it, because I was part of that missions committee that actually, after nudging from Betty and Adolfo to do something for the immigrants of Toronto, because they themselves were immigrants. They came. Adolfo, I think, was from Argentina, and they themselves were immigrants, and so they were, advancing this idea of starting something in Toronto, and that's how I heard about it. So soon after this committee was doing the basics for starting this program, then they decided, well, if we're going to do this right, we're going to have a full-fledged board of directors, and they're gonna work this through and make it happen. So that's when I was appointed to that original board, and from there we decided on the name and also on the bylaws. Like, we set up basic bylaws that were simple, and from there they were added and changed. I think at one time the bylaws insisted that it'd be a certain majority of Mennonites were supposed to be on the board, and I don't think that's probably necessary now anymore. So the bylaws changed over time, but we instituted the name and the bylaws. That the name was important to some of us that have Mennonite in it, and because there was certain programs that they were insisting, well, it's going to be too institutionalized or whatever if the name Mennonite is, but no, we said we wanted the name Mennonite in it, and so that's how it came to have Mennonite New Life Center of Toronto. It was near St. Clair and O'Connor, near that in that area of East York, I guess. And yeah, it started in the basement of just a house, and they rented an apartment in the basement, and the entrance was downstairs into the basement, and yeah, that was where I had my first my first job. I was a receptionist there for one time. Yeah, I came there. I think I was early for a board meeting to beat the traffic or something. Oh, we don't have a reception here. Do you want to hang in there? And I knew Spanish, and that's mostly what the calls were about. I was in there, like I say, the first year or two, and it was a lot of Spanish people going, "Buenos días, ¿cómo está? Aquí está Alfredo, ¿cómo está?" And that was my call sign. I was in South America as a MCC PAX worker, which is
young unmarried fellows.
Young unmarried fellows. It was actually, we didn't need it in Canada, but it was actually set up to alternative service for conscientious objectors, for those who are drafted into the army, and then you could do this alternate service, and that's what I did it voluntarily. We didn't have that in Canada, but it was arranged or set up. So I went to Bolivia, South America, and I was working in agriculture, because my background was agriculture, and I wanted to get away from home. I'll be honest. It was an experience that was not totally honorable or not, but it was also selfish in that I was looking for an experience for some to get away from home, if nothing else. I was 21, and so that's when the age group of all the guys that were doing this service, alternate service, and I did my time in South America. So in order to be down there, I had 3 months of language study, intensive language school in Bolivia, and then it was immersion. So then I learned Spanish. I was there for 2 years, so I just kept growing. Vocabulary is so important. They were learning more words and more words in a language, and you understand that better than anybody. And so by the time I was done, I had a pretty good handle of Spanish. So then I was ready. And then I had my farming business. We had our business here for 40 years, and in 2002, 2005, the both of us went back to Bolivia. And then I already had I still remembered Spanish. Of course, I'd already been in the office at the Mennonite
New Life Center?
Yeah, New Life Center, and done the office work there. So I had the Spanish, but then I used that again, and another time in 2002 to 2005, we were in Bolivia for 3 years, the two of us together. And that's when she did the editing and publishing of our 24-page paper every month. So she had 36 issues about that you published, and some of us did the writing, and we brought her the material, but she did use the computer, the publishing platform on the computer, and so she set it up and worked with newsletters.
I do mostly church newsletters. I did a newspaper in Bolivia for 3 years.
Because it was just a very small staff. It was Betty and Adolfo, and maybe not even. I think they acted as receptionists for the first while, and they may have had one or two helpers, part-time volunteers. So they were maybe only looking at maybe 30 a month, or something, just very small. But it grew very rapidly, and that was a really we were really pleased to see that. And of course, Betty and Adolfo, they were really go-getters. Mostly language. I think probably that was the basic push to get that, because so much was based on language. It was mostly with Central Americans, Spanish speaking. That was the initiative at first, and they obviously were interested because they spoke Spanish fluently. That was Adolfo's first language, was Spanish. So he could really communicate very well with all the Central American and South American immigrants who were coming, and they would see the need to learn English if they were going to move forward in Canada, in this English-speaking country. Yeah, it was fairly gradual, but it probably was within the first 5 years. I was on the board. I was trying to remember. I think probably almost 10 years. I was on the board from the '82 to about into the early '90s, and during that time, definitely we were pushing. The board was pushing to be more inclusive, to add others as the budget would allow. So much was centered on funding, right? And in those days, there was very little funding coming from the government. It all had to come from donations, from voluntary churches supporting, and from our conference, the group of churches I was talking about, United Mennonite Churches of Ontario. Through the conference budget, they would have a budget line for the Mennonite New Life Center, and so they obviously wanted to make it more inclusive, more people needing needing that help from not just language but also to jobs, finding workplaces, housing came on to be a big part, finding places for people to live, like they were coming not knowing language, not knowing the city, and so all these just integrating into this big city of Toronto was part of it was all part of their mandate, was to reach out to these people who were coming with all these needs: housing, language, jobs. I think both. I think mostly classes though, because that was the way you could help the more people at one time, right? So yeah, there was English as a second language was very popular. I think there was material that was coming from the government as well, so they used that. But the funding, like I said, was mostly from donations. I probably about the first 5 years or so totally, and then slowly we realized, hey, there's funding available if you do the things, if you fill out the forms, if you do the paperwork, you could find funding. So so then we one of the board members, boy, I wish I could remember his name. He was from Toronto. He took over the job of really delving into filling out the forms and trying to get funding from the government. So it was initially a board member who really helped out with the filling out the forms, paperwork to get funding from different sources. It's hard to just pinpoint one moment or one thing in time. I would say when we started reaching out to being more inclusive, more open to not just the Spanish speaking, but that, and also when we realized that there was funding available, it was government or charitable, other groups that were willing to pitch in and help out. But I would say, especially when we realized there was funding, but till then, we had been struggling to, just reach out from the churches to put it in their budget lines and find the resources, the funding to keep this place going, which we knew was needed in Toronto so badly.
I remember when the government, or whoever it was, wanted to set up their own welcoming center like the New Life Center is, but they came to the New Life Center and they looked at what they were doing and they decided it was better for them to help fund the center than to start something else from scratch.
The main things was hosting the whole staff here on our property, on the farm. They came from Toronto. This was in the summertime, and this was an outing, and we invited them and the board. We did this about 2 or 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I think so.
We got to know the staff, and that was really, really interesting, and we could be one-on-one out in a comfortable, setting out here on the floor. We were outside. We had a barbecue. That was memorable. Planning that, and Betty Adolfo, they went the extra mile in arranging transportation, and it was sort of open even to some clients. I think came along. Some of the families that they happened to be working with right then, and of course the staff was smaller too. Within the first 10 years, anyways, late 80s, so maybe you had a staff of maybe 12 or 14 people, and so they could get into some vans and invite some of the clients. So yeah, we had, and the board members, not all board members made it, could come, but some did. So that was a highlight. Yeah, that was, and like I say, then you got the feel for for what the work was about, right? How's the language going? Are they helping you enough? What can they do more? How can they do this better? Some of those things. Yeah, we could get a feel for the work. I don't think much has changed. Like then we encouraged them to learn the language, and that would help them in so many ways, and to be patient with Canada, and there's a fine line between being open and wanting to learn and to questioning different things that are happening to them in Toronto, and being over aggressive and being obnoxious. There has been some people who have come and demanded attention. Somewhere there's a fine line, a middle road of being patient and being accommodating, but not being too shy, but not being over aggressive either. You understand what I'm saying? You can't just lay back and hope something's gonna come and fall in your lap. You have to be doing something, but you can't be demanding, hey, I'm here now, and be demanding and aggressive.
Where's my job?
Yeah, where's my job? But also you can't just sit back and hope that something's gonna come to you. We wish you all the best as you have arrived in this new country in Canada. We welcome you and hope you can find a home here that you can enjoy.